Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Carol, the Thrifty Chic Housewife, and today we are going to be talking about canning. We are going to be discussing some questions that you all have had. Many of you have contacted me at different times and asked me questions, and so I thought that it would be great to just kind of do a Q&A video, so in case others have the same question, I can answer it for them as well in case you miss it in the comments. I know lots of times people ask questions and leave them in the comments for me, and other people may not see it, but you may have the same question. So I thought it'd be fun to just do a canning Q&A. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, if you're new here and you enjoy the content you find, please consider subscribing, like and share my videos, and follow me on social media. I will leave all the links in the description box below. So if you've hung around my channel very much, you know that I have become very passionate about canning. I thoroughly enjoy it. I have to say that when I first decided to start canning, and actually my husband kind of decided for me, we started out watching, he actually watched with me a lot of videos by Linda's Pantry, and the next thing I know, he was ordering me a pressure canner from Amazon. So I have to kind of give him credit. He kind of nudged me in that direction, and I've been addicted ever since. So I guess that is the first thing I want to tell you, those of you who are new, because I know I have a number of you who are new. You share that with me. You share your concerns and your fears, and what about this, what about that. It is addicting, but it is one of the most rewarding things I have ever learned to do in my life, and I absolutely love it. One of the other things I wanted to say real quick, Ball has come out with a brand new jar that I think is just adorable. How cute is that? It's a pint-sized jar, and I just think that that is adorable. So I bought me some today at the grocery store. They're called flute jars, and they come in a pack of 4. You don't get very many of them, and they're one of the more decorative jars, so of course they're more expensive, but I think they're really pretty. So it'd be nice to can up something that you want to give away maybe, or you can use them for decor or whatever, obviously, but I think they're really pretty. So anyway, be on the lookout for those. So to our questions, and there were many. I'll try not to be too chatty, but I do want to make sure that I answer things for you well. Okay, lids. A question I get asked frequently is, can I reuse my lids? And the answer is a resounding no, 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 no. You cannot reuse lids. They will not seal a second time. Ball is very clear about that. There are other lids out there. The only lid that I know that you can reuse are called Tatler lids. I'm not familiar with Tatler lids. I know they exist. They are a plastic lid, and I believe you have to replace the gasket on them. So I don't use them. I'm a Ball girl. I love all Ball's canning products, and I know that I can trust them. So you cannot reuse the regular metal canning lids. Tatler lids you can. Sorry, I don't know a lot about them, so if you are interested in that, you'll have to do some research and figure all that out. Or I'm sure there are other channels. Linda's Pantry, she does use them sometimes, so you could take a look at her channel. I'm sure she has some information on those. I do not, but regular metal lids cannot be reused. The one thing that I do use them for is sometimes I'll save them just for storing something. If you like to store dry goods or whatever in your pantry in a canning jar, you can always save them for that purpose. So that's a way that you can reuse them, but you cannot reuse them for canning. So there's that. Next question. What is your most canned food every year? Sweet and savory. So my sweet food would probably be apples. I make applesauce. I just can up plain apples. I make apple pie filling, apple jam, apple jelly, apple butter. So I make a lot of things with apples. So that's something that I do can quite a bit of. And then the savory would be beans. You guys have hung around, if you've hung around my channel very much, you know that I love beans, and I have an array of flavors of beans, and I love canning them. So that would be my savory. And as a matter of fact, I'm working on a couple of new recipes, bean recipes for you that I'm kind of excited to try. So beans are my savory and apples would be my sweet. Both great to can. Love, love, love them. This is not really about canning technically, but kind of. Do you have a garden? Yes, we do have a garden. I've never shown our garden because, first of all, we are not master gardeners. We don't have a fancy garden. We don't do any raised beds or anything like that. It's just a plot garden with a metal fence around it, so it's nothing fancy. We've had it for several years, so we're working on our methods, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and all that. So it's not really something impressive to look at. There's a lot of channels out there that have way more impressive gardens than I do. But if you all are interested in our garden, I'll be happy to share with you. But like I said, I don't feel like it's really anything all that exciting. The other question I got along the lines of that, do we start seeds or do we purchase them? We do a little bit of both, but I don't do starters inside, acclimate them, and then plant them. That just became too much to do. My husband's busy season in the business that we have is the same time gardening is busy, so it's hard to do all that. So we make it easier on ourselves and either, like I said, direct sow or buy plants. Tips for storing your canned items. If you don't have a basement or a garage, what are temperature and lighting requirements, and how long can you store them once canned? We have a basement, so I have a nice place to store our canned goods, and if you have one, I encourage you to use it. That's the best place to store them. It's cooler down there. You don't have to have anything fancy. I have inexpensive $50 heavy-duty Sterilite shelves that work really well. My husband has promised me to build some nice ones down there for me. But if you don't have a basement or a garage, and I don't know that I would recommend storing them in a garage unless it was climate controlled. Garages can get kind of hot depending on where you live. And you want to protect your jars from excessive heat and excessive light. So if you don't have a garage or a basement, I would highly recommend finding a closet in your house or just a cupboard that you can dedicate just to your canned goods. The less light, the better. I don't want to say no light. Now, Linda from Linda's Pantry, before she moved, she had a spare bedroom and she put shelves in the actual room, not in the closet, in the room, and she made a canning pantry for herself in a spare bedroom, which I thought was a lovely idea. So with that in mind, it obviously was not a room that was devoid of light because you have windows. So, but you don't want direct sunlight on them. So I'm not going to say no light, but the less light, the better. But I would find a cupboard or a closet that you can dedicate just to your canned goods. Now, with that being said, some people are turned off by canning because they think you have to can massive amounts of things, and you don't. That's one point I really do want to make with you guys, is even if it's just you or just you and your husband, you don't have to can big batches of things to enjoy the hobby of canning and the deliciousness that you get making food yourself. The ball canning book that I use most frequently, the all new Ball Book of Canning, has a ton of recipes in it that are small batch canning. So you don't have to can massive amounts to make it worth your while. Now, with that being said, the point that I do want to make with that is, with water bath canning, there are no minimums, but when you're pressure canning, you do have to have a minimum of 2-quart jars or 4-pint jars for them to process properly. But that's still a small batch of something. It's not really big, so you don't have to can massive amounts of things. And as a matter of fact, the canner that I love and would recommend, they have smaller ones than the one I use. I love the one that I have because it's just a nice medium-sized canner. It will hold 7-quart jars, and they say 9-pint jars. The wide mouth pint jars, I can't fit 9 in there. I usually get 8. So If you use the regular mouth pint jars, you will get 9, but 7 to 8 pint jars is what I get, and 7 quarts is what I get in my canner, and I'll talk about it here in a minute. But anyway, that's still just a medium-sized batch of something, but they do make a smaller one, so you don't have to have a big canner. You don't have to can massive amounts of food to make it worth your time. So just know that. So you don't have to have a ton of storage space either. I guess that was where I was going with this. So if you just have a small cabinet where you just want to enjoy canning whatever it is that you enjoy canning in a place to put it, that is totally fine. Other places that people store things, they use under their bed. You can use for storage. Any place in your house, really, you could store canned goods. Linda in Linda's pantry right now, she has a big like china hutch, and she stores her jars, some of her jars on there, and they're on display, and it's beautiful. So you can be creative with storing, with storage. So just kind of, it's hard for me to tell you exactly because I don't know your space, but just take a look at your space and see what is available to you and how you can make it work for yourself. But like I said, you don't have to have massive amounts of space. So under a bed or a closet or a spare room, if you have a spare room, that would be my recommendation. And if you're concerned about sunlight, they do make boxes, if you will, to store your jars that are specifically made for storing canned goods that help to filter out the UV light. So there's that. And then one of the temperature and lighting requirements. Temperature, you don't want them to be overheated, and you don't want them someplace where they're gonna freeze either. So just your average temperature is fine. And then how long once can? I get this question a lot. Ball and the experts recommend using your canned goods within a year of canning them. I keep my canned goods up to 3 years, and I've not noticed any change in quality, taste, or the way it looks. So I don't know that I go past 3 years. Some people keep them longer, but as long as your seal is intact, there's nothing wrong with the food inside. You just run the risk of it not tasting as fresh as it could. Ball does state they guarantee their seals for 18 months with their lids. So you always want to check your seal, make sure your seal is fully intact and all that, which you should be doing every time, no matter how old your jar is. But I keep mine for 3 years, and I don't have a problem. I wouldn't keep it past that personally, but that's just me. So 3 years is my cutoff. They recommend within a year, so you decide. Stoves for canning. Some of the ceramic top stoves, and certainly your flat cooktop stoves, you have to be careful with those. As a matter of fact, I was just reading about All-American canners, and the manufacturers of the All-American canner recommend that you not use those stoves until you check with your stove manufacturer. The weight of the canner, and with all the water and everything in it, it can be really heavy. So if you have a flat cooktop stove or a ceramic top stove, you need to check with your manufacturer to make sure that it is safe for all that weight. I have a gas stove, and it's pretty heavy duty, so I don't have any of those issues, but I would just check with your manufacturer no matter what kind of stove you have, just to make sure that it's safe to handle the weight of the canner. It's nice to always err on the side of caution. The next question was, what is your favorite canned item? My favorite canned item is tomatoes. I love canned tomatoes. I enjoy canning them. They're so easy to can. You can water bath can them, or you can pressure can them, either one, so you have options there. And you guys, you may think I'm weird, but there is nothing like popping open a jar of home canned tomatoes in the wintertime. Open that can, give it a nice smell, and it is just like taking you back to summer. The smell is almost intoxicating. It is just so good. Plus you can use them for so many things. So tomatoes are my favorite canned item. What is your most popular canned item? My most popular canned item, hands down, my zesty pickles. My zesty bread and butter pickles. People love those. My family knows that I make them, certainly, and they ask for them every time they come over. So, and ask if I have any on hand when they're here. So they are a really popular item. I enjoy making them. We have tons of cucumbers in our garden. So, and that is our favorite out of everything that I pickle. And I do try to make several different types of pickles. The zesty bread and butter is a favorite. So I will link those for you over here in the iCard and also in the description box. They're really delicious and people do love them. Okay. Siphoning or loss of liquid from my jars. Many of you have contacted me and said after my jars have sat, I noticed that the liquid is below my beans or potatoes or whatever it is that I canned. Siphoning or loss of liquid from your jars is caused by, can be caused by several things. It can be caused by a rapid temperature fluctuation in your canner during the canning process. It can be caused by incorrect headspace. It can be caused by packing your food too tightly, and it can also be caused from not debubbling. Now, I have had people say to me over the time that I've had my channel, you do not need to debubble, it's an act of futility, whatever. That is not true. You do need to release the air bubbles from your jars. Number one, it can prevent you from getting a good seal. And secondly, it can cause this problem, which is the loss of liquid from your jars. So debubbling is important. Make sure you have the correct headspace. If you fill your jars too full, that can cause you to have some liquid loss from your jars. And you also want to make sure you're maintaining an even amount of heat throughout the canning process. You don't want your temperature to fluctuate a whole lot or to fluctuate rapidly. I often talk about, well, I do. I try to remember in all my videos, when you start the canning process, we turn the heat up to high so we can get things going. Well, and then I talk about how you need to turn it down so that you're just maintaining that the rolling boil, or you're just maintaining the pressure in your canner. You want to make sure that you change the temperature gradually. You don't want to change it too much too fast. Because that can cause it as well. So those are the four things: headspace, rapid temperature change, food packed too tightly, and removing your air bubbles. So once you do those, if you do those four things correctly, that should alleviate that problem. I do want to say that if that happens to you, the food that is above the liquid is not unsafe to eat. It's, as long as your seal is intact, the food is totally safe to eat. It may be a little bit discolored from not being covered by the liquid, but it is safe to eat. I have encountered that especially with beans. When I cook beans, canned beans, that has been an issue for me in the past, and I've shared that with some of you. The top layer of beans is not covered by liquid, and then they discolor a little bit. If the discoloring bothers you, just remove the top layer, but it's not unsafe to eat. The way I've alleviated it with beans is, I think it's not so much loss of liquid in your jars that causes them to not be covered by liquid after they sit for a while. I think the beans still continue to soak up some of the liquid. So what I've tried to do is always make sure you have the correct headspace, but I've tried to add fewer beans to my jars. Now, canning guidelines say that you should fill your jars to the 1-inch headspace with your beans, and then cover them with liquid, maintaining the 1-inch headspace. And that is correct canning practices, but I have found that putting in like an inch to a half of an inch to an inch fewer beans than the 1-inch headspace, and then covering it with liquid, it gives my beans more room for expansion. So that's how I've dealt with it with beans. Because again, I think a lot of it with beans has to do with them absorbing the liquid, not so much that you're losing liquid during canning. So hopefully that is helpful. Can I leave my canned goods too long after I'm done canning? And yes, you can. If you leave your canned goods in your canner too long, once the canning process is over, something called flat sour can happen. And I wanted to just talk about that briefly. I know I'm getting windy here, but what is flat sour? This is from the Healthy Canning website, and they are a great resource, and I will link them for you guys below. I love their website. They have great information. They follow all the rules, and you can trust anything that you find there. But they do a lot of great articles on canning questions, and they go into a lot of detail. I won't go into all the detail, but anyway, flat sour is an unappealing off flavor that canned goods, home or commercial, can develop. Flat sour happens when processed jars are kept in a warm state for too long after processing. You do want to leave your jars in your canner for 5 to 10 minutes after water bath canning, or 10 to 20 minutes after pressure has gone away in your pressure canner. Opinions vary amongst the experts as to the exact rest time that is best. But that's the range. 5 to 10 for water bath canning, 10 to 20 for pressure canning. As per current recommendations, to give the jars time to rest and calm down a bit after processing, but do not leave them in for hours after that if you can help it. That's when it develops. You're letting your jars sit in that warm water, and then it develops bacteria, allows bacteria to flourish that causes the sour taste and smell. Processed food should cool quickly. Jars should be removed from a cooker or water bath canner as soon as processing is complete. Avoid a draft, but do not cover with a cloth. I know that people like to cover their canned goods. Some people like to cover their canned goods with a cloth. You do not want to do that. A lot of people use a kitchen towel. You don't want to do that. You also, when you're letting your jars cool, you do not want to sit them too close together. You do want to give them some space so they can get air around them. So do not make sure you have at least an inch of space in between each jar to allow adequate ventilation for them to cool. What cannot be safely canned? I get this question a lot, and there are people who will argue, but you know me, I'm a safety girl, so I do stick to the rules. But here's basically the breakdown of what you cannot can. Fats, including mayonnaise, lard, and oil, butter, fatty cuts of meat. So make sure when you're canning meat, you trim the fat. Also, there are exceptions for small amounts of fat that are included in tested recipes. And I've talked about that, and when I do my canning videos, I do talk about that. Dairy, including milk, cheese, sour cream, whipping cream, yogurt, milk, buttermilk, tofu, soy, or coconut milk. Eggs, no eggs. No grains, including oats, wheat, rice, barley, cornmeal, and bread. Pasta and noodles would stand to reason. They're made with grains and dairy usually. Mashed vegetables and meats. Mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie filling, liver pate, etc. Giblets and pureed soups. So those are a no-no, which is why you cannot home can refried beans. So that's why I do my Mexican beans. I season them all up, and then once you open a jar, all you have to do is throw them in a pan and smash them up and add, if you want to add something else, some other seasoning to them, or fresh garlic or whatever you can. And I do have a video on doing that, but that's why I just can the beans and season them, and then I don't particularly can refried beans. You can't do that. It's not safe. Thickeners, including flour, tapioca, cornstarch, and cornmeal, and arrowroot. There is a thickener that you can use safely. It is called clear gel, and that is used, it's a modified cornstarch that is used in canned jams, jellies, and pie filling, and it doesn't tend to break down when exposed to the high heat needed to can fruit. So make sure if you're doing pie filling or something like that that requires a thickener, that you use clear gel that is for canning. There's instant clear gel and there's cook type clear gel, so make sure that you're using the correct one. Creamy dishes, including pudding, refried beans, instead mash them when you remove from the jar to heat and eat. We just talked about that. Peanut butter and pesto. And then sage. This is the one herb that turns bitter tasting when canned. So don't can with sage. And then I've talked this one to death to the degree that I get hate mail sometimes. Dry beans that have not been previously soaked to reduce the phytic I think it's phytic, PHYTIC acid levels, and then partially cooked before canning. You should not can beans from a dried state. And I'm not going to belabor that point anymore. If you're new to my channel and you want the lowdown on that, I do have a video on that, and I will link it below with all the scientific and tested reasons why you should not can beans from a dried state. So it's really a short list, you guys, for the most part. I think we have many things, many more things than we can than we cannot can. So in my mind, it's not a big deal. You can add thickeners and you can add dairy and fats and all that. Noodles, pasta, all that can be added when you open your jar. Last but not least, well, there's two more things. And I know I'm getting chatty, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I love talking about canning. Someone asked me what canning books do I use that have safe recipes in them. And I have a few. The one that you should start with if you're new to canning is the Blue Book Guide to Preserving. This one I think everyone should have in their arsenal. It has a lot of great information in it, a lot of older, I'm not sure when this was put out, but it's been around forever. So this is, you can trust everything in this book. This one you guys have seen a bazillion times on my channel. The all new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. Lots of delicious recipes in here. You can trust Ball. And then the other one that I refer to all the time is the Amish Canning Cookbook. This I bought from Amazon, and I'll leave you links to all these in the description box below. This one is written by Georgia Varosa. She lives in Oregon, and she is a certified master food preserver. Everything in here I have researched, and she is spot on everything. So, and I fully trust everything she has in this book. Now I will say, if you're looking for more adventurous things to can, this book for sure is more staple type canned goods, things that you see all the time. So it's a good one for a new person, a new canner to have, because it has all the basic stuff in it. She covers meats, vegetables, pickles, all of the basic things that you would want to can. I think where we get into a little bit of trouble is where we want to be a little more adventurous. We want something that's a little more updated. The all new Ball Book of Canning, it does have some adventurous things in it, I think personally, and it's a great book. There are a ton of great recipes in here. One book, so those are my go-to recommended books. And if you want a place to find recipes that you don't have to pay for, use your extension office. Go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They have a lot of recipes on there. Ball Fresh Preserving, and I'll list everything for you in the description box below. Those are great resources. That doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to buy a canning book or a special cookbook. It's all online. But this book we've talked about, the Not Your Mama's Canning Book. I do like this book. There are some recipes in it, and this would be my caution to you. I was really excited when I first got this book. And then as I started wanting to can things in it, and we did can the hummus, instant hummus in a jar. And that is a great idea in theory, but after I shared it with you guys, I thought since it's in a book, you can trust what's in here to be tested and for it to be safe, proven to be safe. That's not the case. Somebody rose the question after I posted that video. I started doing the research, and no one has done research on canning with sesame seeds, which she does in this book. So after I found that out, and I did share with you guys in a follow-up that I cannot say that that recipe is a safe recipe. She claims it is. I contacted her specifically, and she said her family eats it all the time, and she's perfectly comfortable with sharing that recipe. She does have a blog as well, and she has shared that recipe obviously in this canning book with the thousands of people who've purchased the book and on her website. But if you are a stickler for safety, all the extension offices I contacted and The National Center for Home Food Preservation all said, do not can with sesame seeds. It's not been tested, it's not proven safe. So it just depends on what kind of canner you are. And then once that happened, that was one of the first things out of this book. I started looking at a few other recipes. She has some other things in here that have question marks. Just things that I won't say are unsafe, but things that are questionable. And when it comes to my food, I don't really like question marks. So she has a lot of adventurous and good recipes in here, and some of them, most of them I will say, are totally safe, and you would probably enjoy the recipes in here. But as a word of caution, anything you find on the internet and anything that you find in a cookbook, if the person who wrote the canning book is not a certified in food preserving, or I would make sure that you check their recipe and make sure every ingredient that they're using in the recipe is safe for canning and that they've given you the correct processing times. You should be able to confirm that with the National Center of Home Food Preservation. So that one, I can't say I don't recommend it, but there are things in here that are not proven to be safe. So I'll say that. This one, called the Canning Kitchen, I haven't really canned anything for you guys out of this yet. I purchased it last year. They are small batch recipes, and everything that I will say all of her recipes follow the correct guidelines. So I do enjoy this book, but it's mostly condiments, jams and jellies, that kind of thing. That's not really, I don't know that she does any pressure canning. I think hers is all water bath. I'm pretty sure it's all water bath canning. So it's all high acid foods, I guess. So this has some really good recipes in it, some adventurous things that we know that are safe for canning, different spices. She spices things up differently. So there's some fun things in here, but it's mostly water bath canning, mostly condiments and that kind of thing. But it's good. So this one I would recommend. And then the other three, this one, there are some question marks. But she's a lovely lady. I mean, I don't want to put anybody down. I don't like doing that. But I cannot tell you that the recipes in there are safe. So I am going to look at a couple other cookbooks. There are some canning books. There are a few others that I'd like to investigate, because who doesn't like adding new things to their repertoire, right? So I'll be checking out some other ones. And as I buy ones and know that they're safe and that they're within the safe zone, I will let you know. So, okay, last but not least, I'm almost done here. I was asked, what canners do I recommend for newbies? So let me bring you in close. Okay, I brought you in a little bit closer so that hopefully you can see better. It's the canners that I always use. This is my beloved All-American canner. It's the 915. Like I said, it holds 7 quarts, 8 or 9 pint jars, depending, and it is a fabulous, fabulous canner. I started out with this. The reason I love it for new people, and the reason I enjoyed it as a newbie, is because it is a weighted gauge. It's technically a weighted gauge canner. It has the weight, but it also is a dial gauge canner. So over here it has, you can see with your dial when it comes up to the correct PSI, and it also has the temperature. So you have a lot of checks and balances, if you will, with this canner, which is why I like it. So I know that when I'm getting close to 240 degrees, that's my 10 PSI, which is what I can at. I will expect my weight to start rocking and rolling. So it has a lot of information, and it made me feel very secure as a new canner using it, because I had so many checks and balances, if you will. So I've loved it from that perspective. They are expensive, I will tell you that, but it's an investment, and you will have it for a lifetime if you take care of it. So as long as you take care of it, it'll last you for your whole canning career, promise you. And I can't say enough good things about it. I have really enjoyed this canner. With that being said, make sure that if you're new, you know your altitude. There are adjustments you have to make with both pressure and water bath canning, depending on your altitude. So please, 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 for those of you who are new, make sure you know your altitude so you know what adjustments you need to make and what PSI you need to be using when you're canning. It's very important. Okay, now for the water bath canner. And this one I got last year, and I have talked and talked and talked about it. And many of you have purchased it because I've talked about it so much. This is the Victorio multi-use canner and stock pot. I love it because it does three things. It's a wonderful big old stock pot if you're making a lot of soup. It's a water bath canner, and it is also a steam canner. You cannot beat that. Now, if you've watched my channel for very long, you know I have absolutely fallen in love with steam canning as opposed to water bath canning. I don't think I've done any water bath canning since I got this, because on the lid, it has a dial that tells you when you're in your zone and when to start timing. I think that is fantastic. So you can use it as a water bath canner, a steam canner, or as a stock pot. So love it. Again, if you take care of it, it'll last a lifetime. It's not really that expensive in my opinion for all that it does. I think it's around $70, but if you take care of it, you will have it forever. So highly recommend this. I will link them for you in the description box below. I recently applied to become an Amazon affiliate, so if you would click on the link and you purchase it through my affiliate link, I will make a small commission off of it. You don't have to, but if you want to, that would be great. And it's at no additional cost to you. They just pay me a small commission if you purchase through my link. So totally optional, but I would love it if you would. So that's it for my canning chat for today, you guys. I will leave the links of all the things that I talked about in the description box below. And again, if you have more questions or when you're watching any of my videos, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can leave me questions in the comment section. If you would rather ask me a question privately for whatever reason, again, I don't think that there are any dumb or silly questions. I would rather you ask me the same thing a million times and have it right than to do something wrong that could make what you're doing unsafe. So I love canning. I love talking about canning, as you can tell. So I am always here to help you in any way I can. If you want to contact me privately, hop on over to my Facebook page, Thrifty Chic Housewife, and you can message me privately through my Facebook page. I'm not sure that you can do that on YouTube. If you can, I don't know how to do that. But you can do that through my Facebook page. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I appreciate you all so very much. I love your questions, so please don't ever hesitate to ask or contact me. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.